everyone, it's Allison. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be making just about the cutest little gift bags ever. These gift bags use a few new products from Spellbinders. And I'm going to get started just showing you the actual gift bag die. There's just 2 pieces to this gift bag die. And the nice thing about it is it's just smaller than a 6x6 paper pad, so you can use your pattern paper. Now I've already cut these 2 pieces with the die, and it's easier to see the scored lines on the back of the paper when you're using pattern paper. So I'm finding those lines on the white side and kind of folding it back on itself before I then fold it forward. So you just want to score on these lines that the die creates. And again, for me, I just find it easier to fold it backwards, finding the line on the white side. Now, these little diagonal lines on the bottom of the bag, this is probably the most important part of the bag functionality. So you want to just carefully fold it, and there's this line there that basically creates the bottom of the bag. You don't want to you don't want to like reinforce those diagonal lines any further than there. It's hard to explain, but in person you'll see that line of the bottom of the bag that you just don't want to fold past. So I'm going to do that with both pieces. Now I'm taking this short side and then I'm going to match it up with the other side of the other paper. So one side has this short little folded scored edge, and then the other side has the longer scored edge. And I'm just gluing those together. Now I was lucky in that my pattern matched up pretty perfectly. I'm not even sure how I did that. You don't want to use, I don't know, like sometimes diagonal striped patterns are kind of hard to match up the side of the bag. It doesn't really matter if it's not perfectly matched up. All right, so the way I do this, the way I find it is the easiest. You just fold at this first scored line. And again, I have this short side that I'm going to add glue to. And I'm just going to lay it flat and fold the other piece and glue it down. And that to me is just about the easiest way to do it. So I'm just going to make sure the glue is set. And now I'm going to kind of just reinforce the sides of this bag and kind of just train the folds the way they should go. And then when I have done that, I can turn it upside down and I can close up the bottom of the bag. And remember, the bottom of the bag is where we have those little diagonal folds. So it just kind of like pops down, kind of like a present, like if you were wrapping a present. So what I have found, and I'm just reinforcing kind of the sides of the bottom of the bag. Now what I do is I just add a few pieces of score tape to the bottom here just to kind of hold the bottom together. And so this is pattern paper. It's not very thick. I have seen people use, and by the way, I'm just using score tape, and that's how I'm gonna enclose the bag. But I have seen people use hot glue. Now that's because they're using heavy stock paper. If you're using pattern paper, which is thinner, you don't really need to use hot glue. And if I don't have to pull out my hot glue gun, then I'm not going to. So I find score tape or double-sided tape to be just fine for this. So my bag is done. And again, I'm just kind of reinforcing the little folds on the side. And there we go. Now I have created 2 more bags, and again I use pattern paper. So this one I use the Make It Merry paper pad. This is from Spellbinders, and then I made this cute one. This is from the Nitpicky Winter pad from Lawn Fawn that has the cutest little stitched patterns. And then the one that I just made that you saw me make is the Feelin' Festive paper pad from My Favorite Things. I always want to say MFT. All right, so let's get started. This little guy is the Dancin Figgy Pudding, and oh my gosh, he is so cute. So I have him on my mini stencil mat, and I am just adding some vintage photo just to add, little cooked edges to him. So I'm just going to do that until I'm happy with the way it looks, and I'll do part of his little arms and his legs. And then I'll bring this little girl out. She is from the Dancin Gingerbread set. And again, these are new. Spellbinders loves making these little dancing die sets. And these are just two of the newest additions to that. So now I just kind of hand cut some backs for these guys. And I'm going to attach it to there. And I'm doing that so I have a place to add the little mouth and the eyes. So I have the mouth and the eyes on my smallest grip mat from Waffle Flower. And I'm just going to ink those up again with vintage photo. I had just basically cut a scrap of white from the face of that gingerbread girl to get those little pieces. So for the Dancin Figgy Pudding, I had actually done that with pink cardstock for whatever reason. So I had 2 pink cheeks already, and now I'm just going to make the pink eyes black by using a marker. And I'm just rolling the marker all over every edge just so I don't have any pink edges to the eyes. And now I can just add glue into those openings and pop the facial features in there. And again, this is just kind of the way that I have found it to be easiest to add features like this. So there go his cheeks. And now we're going to dress the little gingerbread. And this little dress, how cute is that? That's from that Nitpicky Winter paper pad from Lawn Fawn that I had showed you. And there are these little gingerbread details that come with the die, so I'm going to add those. Now, technically, gingerbread girls don't have fancy little dresses, but I just couldn't resist with this little pattern. And I cut it so you can see the little hearts on the dress, which I think is so precious. I just think this little girl and the little figgy pudding are just the cutest thing ever. And I apologize if I say that 100 more times in this video. So here I'm just adding a little bit of color to the center of that bow. This is worn lipstick. And now I'm just adding the last little bit of gingerbread details to her. And then we can finish up our little figgy pudding. Who has had fig pudding? I have not. I don't even know. I mean, I'm assuming there's figs in it. And here I'm just adding little details like gluing on the boots, and then I'll create the little scarf. Fig pudding, it sounds like something that would be on that British baking show. I haven't watched it in a while, but my husband and I enjoy watching that show. Anybody else enjoy the Great British Baking Show? So yeah, fig pudding, fruitcake, things like that. That just makes me think of something you would see them make. All right, so now I have the little mittens and this little part of the scarf. I had initially glued it on And then I decided I wanted to kind of beef it up and give it a little bit more dimension. I thought it just looked better. So I added a piece behind it, and now I'm going to re-glue it on there. And of course I had to use green and pink. I think I've mentioned turquoise is my favorite color, but when it comes to Christmas color combinations, I love green and pink. And fun fact, green and pink were my wedding colors. All right, so for the berries, with the little holly, I'm going to glue the first two on, and then I'm just adding a little sliver of a foam square so that I can add that third berry on top. Otherwise, it would just kind of be uneven because I've kind of just glued them all on top of each other. So, and I like the dimension that adds. All right, so for this little guy to dance, you need a foam dot in the middle of that circle that's on top of the legs. And I didn't have a big foam dot, but I did have a big foam square. So I'm just making my own dot and cutting it into a circle. Now you could stack some paper circles to do this and just glue them all together. Doesn't have to be perfect. All right, so now I'm attaching him to my bag, and as usual, I'm going to glue things to the back first. So I'm just kind of positioning the little guy on the bag, and that way I can figure out where to glue his arms. And so I'll make sure those are on there. And now I'm positioning the head just so I know exactly where I want the legs. Because remember, I need to put the foam dot. Now, you don't glue any part of the legs down. You just put the foam dot right in the middle of that circle. And that's going to keep the legs on. But before we attach the little head or the cake or whatever, we need to make the handles for the gift bag. So this was the second part of the die, and I'm just taking what I had handy, my craft pick, and just kind of curling those handles. Now there's this little line on each side of the handle, and I use double-sided tape. I find that better than glue, and you just put it right on the bottom of each side, right underneath that line. And now you just attach it to the inside of the bag. And I usually attach it anywhere between 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch from the edge of the bag. And then you do the same for the other side. And you're just attaching it so it's right, that line that the die made is right at the top of the bag. So to attach the second side, I just kind of line it up with the back, with the other, like I close it, you'll see me, I kind of close the bag so that I can line it up with the handle on the other side. All right, so the handles are on. Now it's time to attach the little guy's head, and I've attached more foam dots on top, just to make him more stable. So put the leg on. You don't want to put any foam dots below where, it could prevent the legs from swinging. So you have to be careful where you place foam tape or glue or anything when you have these little dancing figures. And here he is dancing. All right, so for a little tag to put on here, I had like a little scrap of paper. It wasn't even big enough to cut out this full tag, but and by the way, this tag comes from the Assorted Tags Die Set. But so I liked the shape of this tag, but the sentiment, which actually comes from the Snowman Hugs, Faces, and Sentiment set, it was small anyway. So I wanted a smaller tag, and you've seen me do this before. I want this tag to be smaller, so I'm going to do some partial die cutting. So I'm lining the bottom of the die up to where I basically want the bottom of my tag to be. And I'll just tape that. I'm placing it on my bottom plate, and now you'll see I'm placing my top plate over just the bottom of that die. And that's the only part that's going to cut. So now I have created that rounded edge on the bottom of this partially die cut tag. And there you go. How adorable is this? I really want to keep it for myself. All right, so let's finish her. These dies are also new. These are the sealed Christmas Sprigs, and I thought it would be so cute if she was holding flowers. So that's why I did this. So here I'm just assembling flowers, and like all Spellbinders flowers, they're really easy to assemble. Now just for dimension, I put some darker layers on first, and then I will put a second layer of the lighter pink on that flower you'll see in a second. And here's the smaller flower going together. Now I'm going to glue the body down first, and I have attached a heavy piece of white cardstock on the back just to beef this up as well. And remember, I had done that on the head. Now I'm making sure that I leave that arm a little loose so I can tuck these leaves and the flowers underneath the little hand. So I'm just kind of putting glue on the very ends of these flowers and tucking them underneath her hand. And now it's finally time to attach the head, and I'm using foam tape, foam dots, and a little bit of glue on the top of her dress, and there she is. Now I'm going to embellish the flowers, and I'm using these Fashion Bella pearl dots. I think I've purchased almost every color of these pearl dots from Spellbinders. I love them. So you'll see me I think I ended up putting a larger pearl dot in the center of this bigger flower eventually. All right, for a sentiment for this bag, I'm using the new Popular Sentiments die set. And these are just little sentiments, but they have a shadow die, and I really love the font. I think they're adorable. So there we go. She is done, and let's take a look at the bag. And how nice and crisp the bottom looks. She is precious. All right, I couldn't stop making bags, so I had to make another one. This little cupcake is from the September Large Die of the Month. And for my cupcake topper, I used a gnome from the Gnome Drive Holiday set. I just bought that recently, so I had to use him. And these little mints are from the seasonal cupcake toppers. Now this was made as an add-on for the cupcake for the Large Die of the Month. So there's all these other fun things to put on top of your cupcake. These little tags, the sentiments are the mini Christmas sentiment strips. These were our hot foil plates. So I just hot foiled these onto a couple different colors of cardstock, and I cut them with the Swallowtail Tags dies. And here we go with that bag. And you can see the little cupcake liner. I used some more of that paper from that Lawn Fawn set. And here are all three together, and I'll be honest, I have a couple more bags that I've already made because I couldn't stop making these. That is it for me today. I hope you had fun watching these. I know it was a longer video, but there were 3 bags, so hopefully you'll forgive me. I thank you for joining me today, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.